Hello, ladies and gentlemen. And it took a while, but now I'm set up. As you enter the platform, please hit the like button. Thank you very much. This will hopefully be the first of many late night live streams. In fact, I'm going to start this. This is going to be an after hours live stream. I will probably start a little bit earlier than this, but I had to do a few updates to this device. That's why I started so late. But normally I will be starting probably between 11:45 and 12:15. But this is in the infancy, so to speak. Obviously, the first after hours live stream. The many, as I mentioned. At least I hope they are. Again, as you enter in, please hit the like button. I really would appreciate that. Um, this will be mainly about sports, entertainment, and also the current news and events. It's going to be a very well, it will be a very well-rounded live stream, and I really hope that you all enjoy it. And again, um, just show some support. Hit the like button. I really would appreciate that, and I thank you so much for joining me at this time. As you know, this is mainly a sports channel, but I do deal with current events, dealing with our people, and I do deal with the entertainment sector a little bit as well. I'm very well rounded when it comes to that. At least I hope I am anyway. But let me first deal with the sports side. Of course, everybody should know by now that Cam Newton has signed a 1 year contract with the excuse me, darn, the New England Patriots. Is for only 1 year, and it's an incentive laden contract, which will pay him up to $7.5 million, which is very much below market value for a franchise quarterback. And let's make no mistake, Cam Newton is still a franchise quarterback. I understand that he is coming off of a couple of injuries, but let's face it, number one, he's better than anything that the Patriots currently have on the roster. I mean, they have a fourth round pick and Brian Hoyer, which means you have no. I remember John Madden back in the day said, if you have two quarterbacks, that means you have no quarterback. You have to have a definitive number one top flight franchise quarterback. And when healthy, Cam Newton is certainly that. Now, obviously, I am a fan of Cam Newton as a football player. I'm not a fan of some of his views, but that has nothing to do, obviously, with his arm talent and his success during his healthy years in the NFL. And it will be interesting to see how he does in New England. I do believe that there will be a bit of a learning curve. Probably the first 4 weeks, I could see him struggling a little bit, but I do believe that he will play better as the year progresses. And I do believe that right now he is the best quarterback in that current AFC Eastern Conference. I mean, let's face it, when you have guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick, because let's face it, Tua is going to be about a year away. When you have guys like that, when you have also, let's face it, Sam Darnold has underachieved. Josh Allen, he has the potential to be a very good quarterback. He has been decent. He is not the most accurate of quarterbacks in the NFL, but what he does have are very strong leadership qualities, and he has a willingness to do whatever it takes to win. And that's why the Buffalo Bills have been as successful as they've been over the past couple of seasons. It is mainly due to Josh Allen and also the defense, of course. The Buffalo Bills defense is very good as well. But as of right now, I would have to put Cam Newton at the top of the list as far as quarterbacks in that particular division. And when you have that going for you, normally you will win that division. Let's face it, Tom Brady has been the face of not only the NFL, but of course that division. And he has been the best quarterback in that division during his time with the Patriots. Now, obviously, it will be interesting to see how he does with the Tampa Bay Bucks. He definitely has great receivers around him. I mean, let's face it, the Mike Evanses of the world. Godwin has come into prominence. He has his old buddy Rob Gronkowski. He also has OJ Howard. I mean, let's face it, they have an embarrassment of riches at the wide receiver slash tight end division. Could use a little bit of work, but they have a couple of guys. They do running back by committee there, and now with New England, it is a little different, of course. Sony Michel should be the bell cow, but he was nicked up a lot last year. He sort of regressed a little bit, but he will more than likely be the bell cow running back. If I were Belichick and Josh McDaniels, I would hold off in running Cam Newton a lot. I mean, obviously, coming off of these various injuries, you want to take your time as far as that. But that's number one, Cam Newton signing with the New England Patriots. Number two, and I noticed that there's not been really getting a lot of talk, at least here in the United States. I'm pretty sure, being that boxing is more of an international sport now. I mean, it's somewhat big in the U.S., but it is much bigger, obviously, in Europe and other parts of the world. But the fact that Big Baby Miller tested positive once again for PEDs, that is an absolute disgrace. There is no way that after what happened last time, and let's face it, he tested positive for three different performance enhancing drugs. And that opened the door for Andy Ruiz Jr. to get that crack at Anthony Joshua that Big Baby Miller would have had. And we know what happened during the first match. Ruiz Jr., he basically knocked the shit out of Anthony Joshua, and he was the champion for a while. Of course, Joshua came back in the rematch to take back the belt. But let's face it, Joshua, it was half Ruiz being out of shape and Anthony Joshua changing his game plan, so to speak. And that's why he got the belts back. But Big Baby Miller, in my opinion, is a much better boxer, much more talented boxer than Andy Ruiz Jr. is. And for him to throw that away and allow that to happen is an absolute disgrace. For him to do this a second time is just absolute folly. Now, he was supposed to have a fight this upcoming month, July 9th, but now obviously he had to pull out of that. So now his future is in jeopardy. I don't think that Big Baby Miller will be able to box again. I think there is a very good shot that he will be banned from the sport. And to be honest, I'm a Big Baby Miller fan. That's what makes this so bad. But I have to be fair. If the powers that be decided, you know what, we're going to ban Big Baby Miller from the sport for about 10 years, I certainly can't blame him. Not at this state of the game. I mean, there has been other guys who have lost out of certain time due to much less egregious things. And Big Baby Miller, let's face it, he is playing with people's lives. I mean, he's beyond not thinking. He's just being an asshole. Let's call it what it is. He's being an absolute disgrace. And whatever happens to him at this rate, man. I mean, you know what? The first time you say, well, you know what? Let's give him a break. And we know there have been many other boxers that have dealt with that, with the PEDs and things of that nature. But to do it a second time, there is no excuse for that. I mean, if you want to say the first time, well, you know what, it could have been a substance that he didn't know about, he didn't research, whatever, you can give him that. But the problem with that is the first time he was found with three of them, not just one. There were three different PEDs in his system. Now, I don't know how many this second time has happened. I guess that hasn't come out yet. They still have to do more testing as of this time. But let's face it. I mean, he blew it. I don't think he'll ever be taken seriously again. And yeah, I know with this headset, right? It looks like I'm getting ready to call a play or something. I tell you what, your Giants could use it. I tell you that, but that's another story. But it's very disheartening, very disappointing to see what's happened to Big Baby Miller. And well, I guess we'll stay tuned and see what happens. But as far as I'm concerned, he blew his chance, and it opens it up for other people like Dillian White, the usual suspects. But it definitely hurts in the U.S. as far as having a legitimate heavyweight champion. Now, piggybacking off of that, I don't know if anybody has seen this. If you've noticed, they've now Deontay Wilder's brother has come out and said that he sustained brain damage due to the beating that he took against Tyson Fury. And as we all know by now, Tyson Fury definitely doctored those gloves. It is an absolute disgrace. Now, he should be suspended. He should be stripped of his title if that is indeed the case. And I do believe it is. There have been several there are several photos where you could see that he definitely doctored those gloves. And the fact that nothing has come down as of yet lets you know that it is an absolute disgrace what is going on in boxing. He should have been stripped of that title right away. And there should be a heavyweight tournament to decide who will be the linear world heavyweight champion, because there's no way that Tyson Fury should be able to hold on to those belts. In fact, just a moment, because I'm going to look up my other device. In fact, yeah, Deontay Wilder's younger brother has alleged that he has a dent in the side of his head, and that's absolutely ridiculous. In fact, this is essentially sports. That is the place that I'm getting this information from. In a startling new revelation, the younger brother of Deontay Wilder stated that Deontay received injuries from a blunt object during his rematch with Tyson Fury. According to Marcellus Wilder, who himself is a professional boxer, doctors who examined the Bronze Bomber after the fight said that Wilder's head showed a dent that most probably came from a blunt object. And he later on went to Instagram to talk about this. He said, it's crazy when you're great, they got to do everything that's underneath real to figure out how to stop you. And the most wicked S about, it is late night, it is after dark. Who am I kidding? The most wicked shit about is people on your own team will do anything for the hate. Money to help them ops take you down. It was discovered by doctors that my brother has a dent in the side of his head due to a blunt object struck against his head from his last fight. No glove or fist was able to cause the damage, according to the autopsy. My daddy once told me, if you pull a gun out on somebody, you better kill them, because if you don't, they're going to come back and kill you. The king is about to rise again. We coming for blood. That is from the Instagram of the younger Marcellus Wilder. Now, over the past few weeks, claims regarding foul play against Wilder have gained momentum. New videos striving to prove the conspiracy true are surfacing every day. However, these cases have even risen as soon as the rematch concluded. Even though pundits did away with these claims, citing the efficiency of pro boxing rules, many fans and analysts believe that Fury meddled with his gloves to take down Wilder. I mean, let's face it, if you've seen a lot of the YouTube videos, and if you've seen, if you rewatch the fight again, you could see that Fury's camp had meddled with his gloves about it. Now, however, there have been no official statements from Deontay Wilder himself. Although he has stated that he will definitely win the trilogy fight, he has not hinted at all towards any sort of foul play. In fact, even immediately after the fight, Wilder stated that Fury won because he was the better man that fight. Thus, with Wilder's brother calling Fury out for foul play, it is difficult to assess the genuineness as long as Wilder himself or his team does not comment on the same. Well, that's again according to essentiallysports.com. But as far as I'm concerned, I mean, let's face it, your eyes don't lie. I mean, Fury definitely tampered with those gloves. And to be quite honest, as far as I'm concerned, he really didn't need to do that because he was dominating Wilder. Now I understand that Fury, I mean, he hits like Scott Tissue. He really is not a puncher, so to speak. But let's face it, he was 270 plus pounds for that fight, and he was leaning on him. He was mauling him, and Wilder, to be fair, he to me he looked undisciplined as usual. He did not stick out the jab enough. I mean, he did lose that fight. There's no question about it. But Fury was out of pocket doing what he did, and he should have been stripped immediately, especially after seeing a lot of these tapes. There's no question about it. Fury should have been stripped of his title. But unfortunately, he hasn't been. And it seems like due to this COVID-19 thing, it seems like that's sort of on the low rung of the totem pole as far as priority is concerned. But unfortunately, that is the case. And here we have a paper champ, so to speak, in Fury. And let's face it, the other champ who holds the other four belts, Anthony Joshua, had basically more than a few. I would say his last 5 performances have been lackluster at best. Even his win against Andy Ruiz Jr., I mean, all he basically did was stick and move. He did not show the power that he was supposed to have shown in his other fights. Hey, Krusty Mole, how you doing this late night? Well, it's probably early where you're at, but it is late night here in the eastern part of the United States. But it is very sad to see where it looked like the heavyweight division was coming back. Now it's back to being the laughing stock of boxing, whereas the lower weights like welterweight, lightweight, the featherweight divisions, all these divisions have been basically carrying boxing for over the past 40 years. In fact, I'll even be generous because I'll give them the last 20 some odd years because to be fair, when Lewis, Holyfield, and Tyson and Riddick Bowe were ruling the heavyweight division, there was a little bit of a renaissance during that time. And it looked like there was a renaissance coming that was going on here with the heavyweight division after Joshua's defeat of Vitaly Klitschko. But now it's a laughing stock yet again with the affairs of Big Baby Miller. You see what happened with the second Fury Wilder fight. And of course, Anthony Joshua being knocked senseless during the first fight. And even though it was a decisive win for Joshua in the second fight, let's face it, that was not his best performance. And there are still more questions than answers about Anthony Joshua. And it will be interesting to see what happens if and when Anthony Joshua steps into the ring yet again. And I'm not sure whether he's going to fight Fury, especially what's happened right now with Fury and Wilder, or will he face a guy like Dillian White again? Now, the first fight, Dillian White, he gave Anthony Joshua a lot more than he could handle, but Joshua came up with a knockout. Now, the thing about Dillian White, he did not train. The last 2 fights, he really underachieved as well. And I'm gonna be honest. I was sort of on the Dillian White bandwagon earlier. But then, and because he was on the undercard of the second Joshua Ruiz fight, and he did not look great either. He should have knocked out the clown that he was fighting, who was a journeyman fighter. But he obviously won the decision, but he was not the Dillian White that I'm used to seeing. In fact, he was so out of shape too. It looked like Dillian White and Andy Ruiz Jr. had the same trainer. But hey, looks like that's the heavyweight division. I know one thing. I don't want to see anything with Dominic Brazil in it. I mean, he stinks. My gosh. I mean, the heavyweight division is such a joke. I mean, we're now, and you know what? Also, I would be remiss if I didn't speak about Errol Spence Jr. I mean, that was such a horrific accident. And for him to be back sparring and back in the ring and training, that is a wonderful sight to see. But I think that he should be careful and work his way back. He should not fight a guy like Bud Crawford right now. And listen, I do want to see him and Bud Crawford fight. But right now, he needs to fight somebody else, maybe a UGAS type fighter, and then fight Terrence Crawford. And to be fair, you know what? Terrence Crawford hasn't fought anybody great either. So it would be nice to see Terrence Crawford step into the ring with a real fighter for a change, you know. But I know the UGAS thing, he was hoping to fight him, but UGAS stepped away. He's supposed to be fighting another guy. And listen, part of that is, you know, just boxing politics, which has also ruined the sport. But enough about that. Thank you so much for joining me so far. And you know what? I'm gonna wrap this up real quick. And this will have nothing to do with sports, but will have everything to do with the so-called Black Lives Matter movement. Now, in order for us to be taken seriously, we have to keep marching for real reform. Okay. I'm tired of seeing this half-ass reforms that we're seeing right now. I mean, these are not reforms. These are token reforms. These are tokens that are being thrown at us. I mean, people are marching. They're literally risking their lives out here when you look at the epidemic. Because let's face it, being out there amongst a huge gathering, you don't know who has what. And for as many people that are wearing masks, there are a lot of them that are not. I mean, we have to be fair about that. And then when you look at these guys out here, and I'm talking about the real people who are protesting. I'm not talking about the people that they've been showing on YouTube and on other social media platforms that are twerking, that are kneeling, and they're dancing, doing a twirl, doing a spin, and all types of other stupid shit. I'm not talking about them because those are distractors. Those are people who just want their 15 minutes of fame and are really cheapening the so-called Black Lives Matter movement. Now, I understand if you want to say, listen, it's been corrupted, I understand that. And I'm not going to disagree with that because let's face it, we know it's been hijacked by other groups of people. And I'm just going to leave it like that. But for the people who really are about it, who really are doing what they're supposed to be doing as far as the protesting and the marching, listen, you cannot settle for, oh, we're going to change Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben's, and Mrs. Butterworth's. That's just, please, those are token things. I mean, those things we know should have never have taken place anyway. I mean, am I glad that they're being changed? I'm going to be honest, I could take it or leave it. But there are three things that have to be done in order for there to be real reform. Obviously, at the top of the list is reparations. That should have been taken care of. We know with the president. Listen, We already know that there are several presidents that it should have happened under. We know that, but let's face it. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is most of it is on the promoters. The promoters have really and they've been a boon to they've really ruined boxing for years. This goes back to not just Don King, even though Don King is, he's the easy target, but guys like Bob Arum, uh, you know, and Duva, all of those guys have made a farce of the boxing game with their underhanded promotion tactics. But going back to these so-called token reforms, let's face it, reparations has to be at the top of the list. We know that Obama didn't even speak about reparations. And for him to say anything regarding our people right now, let's face it, it should fall on deaf ears. We shouldn't listen to anything Barack Obama has to say as far as reparations and as far as the social and economic advancement of our people, because he had a chance in 8 years to do something and he did absolutely nothing but sit on his ass and do everything for everybody to fuck else. So fuck Barack Obama when it comes to that. That's first and foremost. Reparations has to be on the top of the list. Let's not listen to these people like Barack Obama. Let's not listen to people like Kundance Owens. Let's not listen to people like Oprah Winfrey. All those people do not have the black community's best interests in mind. Of course, he sold out from day one, and he showed you how much of a seller he was, not only when he um, went up on Oprah. And if you look at his track record in Chicago, it is abysmal, at least. But let's just face it, when he threw Reverend Wright under the bus, he let you know the type of human being that he was. I mean, he did not care. He was basically doing his master's bidding. Now, obviously, in dealing with the pandemic that is before us right now, I do believe he would have done a much better job than the clown that's in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue right now. But I don't know if that's saying a lot, because this clown is the utter laughing stock of the entire planet Earth. But you know what? I'm sick of talking about him. I don't even want to. That's why, if you notice, I very rarely even mention his name. And I tell you what, and I know I've said it a million times. Well, here's a million and one. If we as a people could, if everybody on the planet could ignore this guy for a week, he would probably hang himself because he couldn't deal with it. He has to be the center of attention some way, somehow. But see, now I'm getting away from what I was talking about. Number one, again, reparations, and we should start again. I've already mentioned we should start the bidding at 500 trillion with a T, because that been that egregious. And let's face it, when you look at the amount of interest and the amount of people that benefited from our free labor over the years, I think that is a very good starting point. 500 trillion with a T. Number two, and it's something that I did not bring up the last time, and shame on me for not bringing it up. Yeah, there is no clear policy on this virus, and that's also done intentionally, but that's going to be for another upload. You know what? When they're tearing down all these statues, and you know what? That's, to me, that's frivolous too, because it doesn't change anything. These guys did what they did. They escaped without impunity, and here we are. I mean, tearing down a couple of statues isn't going to change anything. I think that's a complete waste of time. Now, to hear other guys, talk about, well, the statues need to stay up. Well, it should, but with a caveat. They should keep up the statues, but they should tell the truth about the people like Christopher Columbus. Let people know, you know what, Christopher Columbus was really a failure. He really thought he was in India when he was in the Caribbean. That's how stupid he was. I mean, show that when you're talking about Christopher Columbus and other of these so-called explorers. These guys were utter failures. I mean, talk about that when you talk about a guy like Robert E. Lee, instead of just tearing down, talk about, you know what, he was a useless guy on the losing side, and he cared nothing about the advancement of our people, and he got his ass handed to him. Tell the exact truth when dealing with these statues. That's what should happen. But and I understand if you want to talk about take down the Confederacy, because let's face it, you're not supposed to have statues of the losing team. I understand that. So I get it when they say take those statues down, but to me, there are so many much bigger issues than that have to be dealt with before we talk about that. It's ridiculous. How about reforming the actual Constitution? You know, the Constitution of the United States still has us as 3/5 of a human. Notice no one has talked about that. How about taking that out of the Constitution? If all men are allegedly created equal, how about taking out the fact that we are still 3/5 of a human? I mean, allegedly we've been freed since 1865. Why are we still listed as 3/5 of a human? I mean, we know the answer to that. But if you want real reform, if you're taking out everything else, if you're changing other things, that should be the first thing that should be changed. Not, oh, well, we're no longer going to call our breakfast thing Aunt Jemima, or we're no longer going to call our rice Uncle Ben's. Are you serious? I mean, who cares about that in the grand scheme of things? In the grand scheme of things, 3/5 of a human for our people should totally be taken out of the Constitution. Why aren't any of our so-called leaders marching and talking about that? I mean, that's an absolute joke that they're not doing this. That is number 2 on the list of things that need to happen. Number 3, and I've said this before, is, you know what, they're talking about police reform, and as an example, here in New York City, $6 billion goes towards the police department. But, and yeah, that is a just cause, but you know what? Like, you're absolutely right. It has been twisted into so many different causes because, once again, we have let other people infiltrate something that we began. And that is no different from the original Black Panther movement, the original civil rights movement, and every other movement that we've had, Krusty Mole. We have allowed infiltrators to come in and commandeer it and switch it to their thing. And we have done nothing to stop them from doing that. And it's very sad, but you know what? Until we get it together as a people, this will continue to happen to us. But as I was saying, number 3 on the list is real police reform. And I understand, you know what? Taking $1 billion away from the police department and putting it into the youth of our people, it is a very good start. I will say that. But if you want real police reform, you have to make sure that these guys cannot continue to kill us without impunity. It is ridiculous. Again, what should happen is they should overturn the acquittals of these race soldier cops who have gotten away with killing our people. Make sure that they are convicted, and they should be given no less than 25 years. Plain and simple. You start doing that, I guarantee you the cops will either quit, or better still, there'll be other cops that will be able to take their place and do the job the way it's supposed to be done, because it is supposed to be protect and serve. They are doing everything but that. What they are doing in our communities are treating us like absolute garbage. Now, if you want to say, well, Some of us have caused this to happen. Listen, you can find that in any race of people, not our people. And it is disgusting when you see certain people doing what they're doing. When you have a absolute savage, an absolute disgrace of a human being kill two boys because they asked him how tall he was, and you kill them. Listen, I have no sympathy for people like that in our community. Now, and that's what kills me. Now, and you know what? I'm gonna probably hear some flack about that. Now, those are the people the cops should be shooting. Okay, you don't ever hear the cops shooting these fucking jackasses that did what he did. I mean, I could deal with that. I'm sorry. If you told me, well, the cop shot this kid after he shot two kids because he asked how tall he was, you think I'm gonna shed a tear for that clown? Yeah, you wait for that. But they're not doing that. And I tell you what, we have to keep marching, keep fighting for that. Because as long as people like Dylan Roof can get Burger King on his way to jail and nothing has happened to him, and that also is a failure of our people, by the way. Yeah, they are causing trouble, and it's going to lead for that. It's going to lead to that. And then you have guys, on the other end of the spectrum, the Police Benevolent Association here in New York City, that clown Patrick Lynch. I mean, my God, he has so much blood on his hands, it's an absolute disgrace. But boy, I wouldn't mind seeing, I'm not gonna wish anything on the guy, but I tell you what, if anything did happen to Patrick Lynch or, the people around him, I wouldn't shed any tears. I tell you that. I'm sick of that fucking clown. That damn Patrick Lynch. He makes me sick. I mean, he's been nothing but a disgrace. He's been nothing but a racist piece of crap towards our communities ever since the 80s. I remember that clown Patrick Lynch and the Innocent Five. I will not call them the so-called Central Park Five. But until those three things are done, we're doing all this marching and everything for absolutely nothing. Well, you know what? This was a pretty good live stream. This is the first time that I've done the after hours thing, and I will be doing this every day outside of maybe the weekends. I'll probably take a Sunday off or something like that, but I do plan on doing this every night, a little bit earlier the next time. But I'll be starting probably about 11:45, 12 midnight, and we'll be doing this. We'll be chopping it up a little bit. In fact, I'll be speaking, as you know, on several topics. How are we going to get representation that doesn't care power over? Well, you know what? We'll have to, at this stage of the game, we're going to have to cross that bridge when we get to it. Yeah, and it's going to be hard to find those individuals, no question about it. But we have to do our due diligence and search out those guys. I mean, let's face it, we have to do that. Because if we don't, well, we already see what the results are. Thank you so much for joining me this evening / morning. My name is Uncle Claude White. Please like, share, and subscribe. Take care, and God bless.